Up at the cottage for the weekend, and today we're going to be taking a look at a brand new release from G-Shock, an all new model, the GBD500. There is some pros, there is some negatives with the watch. I've had it a few days now. One of the negatives is the negative display. It is not necessarily the easiest watch to read, although a weekend like this, knowing the time isn't necessarily all that important, but we're going to get into all of the details of the watch, but I just wanted to bring you along for some of the cottage fun. Not really the best time of year for it, but I thought we'd take a couple of casts and see if we can get lucky. Fish aren't biting, but the mosquitoes sure are. Starting to rain here now. No luck with the fishing this morning, at least yet. I'm not quite finished trying, but we did have a really cool treat for the eyes last night. The northern lights were here, which I've never seen this far south in Ontario, so that was really cool. But let's get to the watch, the new GBD500. And here it is, and one thing I'll say right now, this thing is a pain to film and photograph with that negative display. So I'll do my best here. It's a little easier to read, I will say, in person than under the studio lights like this. But yeah, so at the moment, these are available in 4 color options. There's the all black and then the white with negative displays. There is a neon green with a green display, and the last is the gray with orange accents. That has a positive display, but with almost a mirror display. It's hard to explain without seeing it in person, but that one you would think would be the easiest to read. But there's a video out there I recently saw from the channel. Take a look at this. Great channel, by the way, but he was showing that display and how it almost disappears when you're inside. Outside seems great, but check it out. I'll leave a link to his video below. So the watch has a couple somewhat unique things happening with it. One is it has a step counter, which we have seen in G-Shocks, but it's not particularly common. The other is this is now the thinnest G-Shock available in the current lineup and tied for the thinnest G-Shock ever with the GW056. So it's thin, and the case is fairly small when it comes to the case width, but depending on your wrist size, the way they have these solid plastic bits here, I'm not sure what to even call them. Maybe lug extenders is the word, because that's exactly what they do. I like the look, but you might get some overhang if you have smaller wrists. Size on the watch comes in at a case width of 41.2 millimeters at the widest point and 38.1 millimeters between the pushers. I took a couple of measurements here when it comes to the lug to lug too. From the tip to tip of these lugs up here, you're looking at right around 46.1 millimeters, but overall it's 55.9 from here to here. Thankfully, those lug extenders, we're going to call them, drop down quite aggressively. So on my wrist, they hug the wrist perfectly. Thickness on the watch is 11 millimeters. And when it comes to the water resistance, the watch is rated for 200 meters. So as far as functions of the watch go, the watch has Bluetooth connectivity, which personally I don't use other than when I initially set up the watch. If you are using this as a step tracker, you can set up daily targets and even have the watch remind you if you're slacking off with your steps that day. I've never been one to track steps, but it's been kind of fun to use. At the top right of the display, you have these little tick marks to show your progress, and they go from right to left on the bottom, then left to right on the top, until you're at 100% of your target. You can also hit the upper left button here, and that is going to display your total step count for the day on the bottom of the display. Other than the step counter, the watch has pretty typical modes like stopwatch. We have the recall function, timer, dual time, and alarms. But I find everything with this negative display to be tough to read. It's okay for checking the time and even date, but I think if you need that functionality, there's probably better options out there for you. In app, there's quite a few additional functions like phone finder, battery saving modes. But the one thing I'll suggest you do if you get one of these is to turn on the auto light. I actually didn't realize these had that until I got it in hand, but it does, and that does help with legibility when you're not in ideal lighting conditions. The strap is pretty standard issue for an affordable G-Shock when it comes to quality. I feel like the matte finish could end up picking up stains and maybe not something you're able to clean over time, but so far so good, although I've only had it a few days. It does have a plastic buckle. Steel I think would have been better, but it does look clean being all white like that. Quick side by side with one of my squares here. And just to give you an idea of the size difference, and even though the square is bigger, you might find it wears better on smaller wrists than this. And here it is on my 7¼ inch wrist, and I've been really liking the watch. I like the looks more than the functionality, but if they had this with a positive display, I'd 100% go for that. We'll see if maybe they add some different colors and display options down the road, but at a price of 120 USD, I'm happy with the purchase, and I imagine prices will go down eventually too. So let me know what you think. Appreciate you taking a few minutes to stop by, and we'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.